अभी एक डेटा आया SBI का, उसमें लिखा कि अनपेड केयर, जिसको हम होम मेकर्स की भी बात करते हैं, वो भारत की इकोनॉमी में करीब 22 लाख करोड़ रुपए उसका मिनिमम अगर कंट्रीब्यूशन कहा जाए।
अगेन
मैं आपसे समझना चाहूंगा, व्हाट इज योर टेक ऑन इट?
मैं भी समझना चाह रही हूँ कि विच पार्ट ऑफ दैट हाउस relationship is to be monetized. For instance, when you say that the work of a mother is unpaid for, the work of a wife is unpaid for. So if I am tough on my kids, and we have guests who are internationally, I think today, here amongst us, and that is why I use a vegetable which they may possibly recognize in a conversation. If my kid doesn't want to have broccoli, and I want that kid to have broccoli, does that make me a bad mother and I get paid less? How do you quantify carrying a child for 9 months, looking after that child when the child is not able to walk, talk, feed itself? How do you compensate for bones that are broken just because of childbirth? Is there any economist in the world that can compute that cost to me? Secondly, as a wife, today, if I do not do what my husband desires, am I to be computed monetarily less? So, if you start monetizing relationships, then do you reduce women to just that token that is a service component in your life? And that is what nobody has been able to explain to me. What does a female somebody who just runs a family, as you normally say, what does just running a family mean? How do you compute it? And is my love for my child and my husband for sale? No, it's not. So when we talk about unpaid work for women at home, what do you mean? Nobody's been able to explain it yet. If you talk about women who work in, let's say, their own field for agriculture purposes, then you want to compute what her takeaway may have been if she was a day labor. Would you do the same for the man? So that is why it sounds very fanciful, because everybody in the global north has been trying to do it. But the issue is that what is the crux of our systems in families? It is mutual trust. It is mutual respect. Can you respect somebody that you need to pay to love and care?
Very well said, ma'am. Very well said.
And perhaps it's a problem of mindset more than anything else. The terms housewife, homemaker are often used, I think, in a derogatory fashion, not according the respect that women deserve for the work they do.
Firstly, I don't think women give a damn about whether you call them a housemaker or some ambitious lady. Women are not driven by those schisms. I genuinely believe that when you try to contextualize such conversation from an economic point of view, you better have something which is a solid economic perspective for policymakers to opine on. The development sector, which is your NGO ecosystem, works on a lot of contexts. But ultimately, for policymakers to make life easier for people, what do you need to do? I'll give you one example. Ayushman Bharat started. Right? 10 crore families, 300 million Ayushman Bharat cards given out to citizens. How has it helped women? Now, cancer of the breast is something that not many people in our country spoke about openly. But there was a presumption that this is culturally not permissible as a topic of conversation. If you look at the numbers in Ayushman Bharat, women have personally gotten themselves screened for cancer of the breast and the cervix. 24 crore women. What does that mean? That they knew what the problem was, they knew where to get the help from, all they lacked was the resources. So who are these 24 crore women, the 240 million women who are landing up in medical institutions? So it was not a problem of the mindset ever. Who are these women? They are not from the elite. They are not from the educated Tier 1 cities. These are women who are the poorest of the poor. These are women who also belong to villages. They walked up to a medical institution and said, this is my card. I need to get myself screened for breast cancer and cancer of the cervix. That's a huge cultural, I think, takeaway from Ayushman Bharat.
Yeah.
But if you look at numbers financially, and Rajneesh is better at all this than I am, but if you look at the numbers financially, Prime Minister Modi in the past 10 years has taken out 25 crore Indians, 250 million, if I'm right, out of multidimensional poverty. Now, health and the cost of health and out-of-pocket expenses, 130 million people are out of poverty because their health needs were covered by the Prime Minister's flagship scheme. So it is not now only about how do you service women, it is what is the overall budgetary impact on your system? What is the over social impact on your system? And why am I saying this? No other country in the world is running such a complex and such a large medical ecosystem. We are running it. Obamacare ran in a limited fashion, but it did not run in a country of 1.4 billion people. Ayushman is running in a country of 1.4 billion. Right. Another issue, your food grains to the doorstep of 800 million citizens for 2.5 years. That is an administrative miracle which is not happening anywhere in the world.
Given our numbers, most certainly.
Without disruption.
Yeah.
So that is why I said, what India does today, the world does tomorrow.
World does tomorrow. But since we're talking about health, I think we need to touch on education as well. Very quickly, two-pronged question for you. Number one, we still have a huge challenge of a high dropout rate amongst girls in schools. Perhaps more needs to be done. Sorry?
What are the numbers?
Okay, I don't have the data handy right now, but it continues to be a challenge.
Because I do, that's why I know that the numbers are curtailed and they've not gone up.
They've not gone up. But you'll agree it's a challenge. What more do we need to address it?
None of these challenges are topical to India. Two, the numbers of dropouts has decreased. In fact, when Prime Minister Modi took over in 2014, we recognized, and I had the privilege of being Minister Education then, we created the first ever national education policy by going to 2 lakh village education councils, by going to every district, every university, every school parent-teacher organization, by leveraging MyGov, by talking to not only state governments, but every other education minister who has ever served in the history of India, who was alive and who wanted to contribute, every political organization and international partners like UN Women, UNICEF, UNDP. That being said, one of the challenges, especially for women in higher education, today we have close to 263 million kids in K-12. We have around 36 to 38 million kids in higher education. What happens to women who used to not transition from grade 12 onwards to higher education? One of the biggest challenges was that they were not doing, say, things like PhD because they were moving cities either after marriage or for a job. The minute credits were made, given national movement, academic credits, that is when the numbers now of women who are doing PhDs in India has gone up by 99%. 43% of all STEM graduates in India are women. And Prime Minister Modi realized that one of the greatest challenges with regards to dropout is that when the girl enters the menstrual cycle age, they used to drop out for those issues because they didn't have access to toilets. So in the first year of him being Prime Minister, he built 400,000 toilets, marked and mapped. I was there because we did it, so I can say this with satisfaction. Mapped every toilet which was not available in every government school in collaboration with states. I think that's one of the greatest examples of cooperative federalism because not one state backed out. So we know that at every level of engagement, and that is when Prime Minister Modi had the education policy come out, for the first time in the history of independent India, it has a gender inclusion fund that helps fund infrastructure only for education.